Okay, here's the scene. You're sitting in a room, pretty small room, with a few people you know, and you're not super close with any of them, but we'll call it Facebook official. You start to get a whiff of something that's not smelling so good. You're thinking, man, I hope that wasn't me. It wasn't, but you try and make eye contact with people, see if you might gauge who it might have been, but no one confesses. We've all been there. We've all smelt them, but we never heard them. They're those silent but deadly ones, and usually it's the person you least expect. Well, it was likely me, as it has been my whole life. I've had this habit of going under people's radars a lot, both on and off the field. You know, I'm not very tall, I'm definitely not buff, and admittedly, I get mistaken for under 18 all the time. You know, though, before college, I was definitely as naive as I looked. I went to a private middle school where instead of having health class like every other middle school, we had religion. What that meant was I literally didn't know the ins and outs of what sex was. With my background, the ultimate community was definitely an eye-opening experience. And I never thought that I could learn so much about myself from it. A few years ago, I had some teammates play this game, or whatever you want to call it, of 6 Degrees, where they basically wrote down a bunch of people's names on a piece of paper and drew all these lines connecting them based on hookups that they had heard of. Yeah, juicy stuff. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it, but I've heard of its expanse and its web-like properties. At the time, I had been dating the same guy that I came into the Frisbee community with, so as far as I know, I wasn't on that list. But that was then, and this is now. And I think that if people were to do that again, I would definitely be caught up in that web somewhere. So, you know, going from high school to college, dating the same person definitely has its ups and downs. You know, for me, it was comfortable, and it was working out, and we wanted to keep that going. At one point, we had a conversation that was like, well, do we want to go through all of college just dating the same person? You know, are we going to regret not having the single college experience that people talk about? But we had a good thing going. You know, people could see that we worked really well together. You know, similar sense of humor. So we kept at it. So we ended up going from calculus class in high school together to Frisbee parties in college. And there was just a lot of common ground in between. Now, eventually, we came to a similar question, but this time it was, well, if this is going to be a long-term thing beyond college, we need to be sure of it. And we thought the best way to do that was to see other people. So we decided to take a break. Now, having the same group of friends meant still seeing each other. And about a month later, we found ourselves having been drinking earlier that night. We made it to campus with our group of friends. And la-di-da, somehow we were on our own together. I think we made it to the chemistry building where we sat down and asked ourselves, why are we doing this? Why aren't we back together? This is dumb. So we got back together. Now, in the month that we were apart, and even a little bit prior to it, there was definitely a lot of tension that had been building up. You know, we were getting mad at each other for really no reason at all. And it was kind of starting to go down this unhealthy path. But we wanted to make it work again. So for about 2 weeks, we were back together. But the gut feeling that I had that it was just wrong never went away. So this time I called it off. And that's when fit hit the shan, if you know what I mean. That night, there was a Frisbee party. And I ended up hooking up with a guy who was likely going to be his teammate. Yeah, that was what I'm saying. That was my first mistake. The second one was continuing to let it happen. You know, I remember telling my ex that I didn't mean to hurt him. And then I would go hang out with this new guy, you know, and word would get around like it tends to do. He would find out, and I'd be back at square one, do the same thing again. Not so healthy. There aren't many things that I hate, but one of them is being wrong. And I know that was wrong. I know it now. I didn't at the time. You know, this new guy, though, he was different. He thought differently, a lot more philosophical. A lot of my previous conversations were punchline driven. And I liked that it was new, but in reality, I think I only liked it because it was new, not something that I actually liked. This guy, he also had a lot of stuff going on outside of this Frisbee life. That is the only thing that I knew from him. And I really liked having this personal responsibility to be someone who he could talk to. I sincerely liked that. As I like to get to know my friends, just having this world that I hadn't already heard about was great. However, I couldn't be someone who he could talk to and who I could hang out with without hurting someone else. A lot of my friends were telling me, do whatever makes you happy, which was great to hear. And I had one person telling me that I was throwing away 4 years of friendship for a guy that I didn't really know and who didn't really know me. What ended up happening as a result of this is this guy ended up not trying out for the team. That's something that I felt a lot of responsibility for. I know it would be really hard for me to high-five a teammate knowing that they hooked up with an ex. And from the men's team side of it, they lost a player who could have had a big impact to their season, but we won't know. However, I partially mistook, even a year later, thinking that the men's team just hated me for me being embarrassed at what I had done. And it's way easier to think that someone just hated you than to admit that you could actually do something wrong. So basically what happened was I fell for my own silent but deadly act. I never thought that I could be the one to cause all of this drama that I just loved hearing about from other people. Like I was saying, I don't want to live life regretting things. I do regret last year telling the guy at Sloop Plantation that I was in fact older than 12 when he asked, because I would have got the 50% off discount. But in all seriousness, I do really regret hurting people. But I'm thankful for it, and I'm glad that all of this drama happened to me. I learned way more than I ever thought I could about myself, and the difference between how people see me, this innocence, versus who I actually am, and that's what she said jokes that I like to say, and everything in between. It's like they're very different. Now I've learned, for me, what's good is dating outside of the Frisbee community. I'm going on a year with the same guy, so pretty great catch for me. Thank you. Anyways, for being 22, I have a very solid Frisbee resume. I've won a national title. I've won a world title for that matter. And while those are awesome, and I'm super proud of them and all the memories I've created from them, my biggest achievements playing Ultimate has been this personal growth through this experience. Thank you.